personal growth, interpersonal relationships.
We're live, my friend. You're looking good. You're looking fierce for the week that you felt. What's up, guys? You're listening to Your Radical Being, season finale of season 1. This is Fiona Rene.
And Samar Poorlakani.
And we are here discussing our radical beings to connect with you beautiful radical beings out there. Today is a heavy episode.
Because all the other ones have been so light, especially lately.
Fair, facts.
Yeah.
Touche.
We're upping our game. We're leveling up.
And we're hitting it at a really good time because summer is actually holding all of it today. This whole month, but especially this week, not only, personally traumatizing in your life with like all of the physical things that you've been dealing with on your own and a lot of your chronic pain. I have been speaking to you a lot this week and you've been really holding a lot of that. But simultaneously, the world is in a panic. Lots of things are changing. My friends in Paris don't know if they're going back into lockdown. My friends in London don't know if they'll come out of lockdown. And Texas, where you are, is doing its own thing.
We're just going to get right there. Yeah. I was like, my face went from like smiling to like deadpan. I'm just like, God damn it. Yeah. It's like, we're not allowed to make any real progress whatsoever.
Oh.
2 steps forward, 10 steps back.
It's really rough. My dad, on the other hand, I think is pretty stoked about it all.
Of course he would be stoked about it. We don't need to talk about that.
At the end of episode 9, we kind of opened the door to transitioning out of a lot of personal acute trauma and really focusing on how trauma gets passed down to us, not only from our ancestors or parents, our community, but our social life and our world. And how we respond to those external things actually become projections that we put out back into the world, which is a crazy cycle.
Yay.
The human cycle. And I just kind of wanted to list off those things that you mentioned at the end of the last episode so we could kind of maybe walk through those and see how they're affecting the two of us. You mentioned economic insecurity. And imbalance. You mentioned obviously a lot of the racial injustice that's been going on right now and the BLM movement leading to so many other things. The pandemic, that little thing.
My favorite, Mere Now Reality.
Yeah, all the germaphobes out there were like, what the fuck? Which has really opened the door to so many smaller bullet points, right? And then last but not least, the end of the world, literally.
The existential dread on top of that.
Yeah, climate change and how did you hear about that big chunk of Antarctica that just broke off into the ocean?
I cannot think about that right now or I will start crying. We're fine.
The video was insane. The crack into the land. I mean,
There's a video out there?
Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio posted the video of like a helicopter kind of going over the big crack.
I'm not gonna cry. It's fine. I've been on the brink of crying so many times today. Like even in sessions, like a client will share something sweet and I'm just like, your therapist is okay. Please continue.
That just goes to show how much empathy you have, which we talk about all the time, empathy being the superpower that everyone needs to access because it really helps make the world go round. But so much empathy really can be like clogging.
I'm rereading actually a book I read earlier in this pandemic. Like I think I read this in June, but Judith Orloff is a psychiatrist / MD who also considers herself to be like an intuitive empath healer. And so I read her book. It's right here. The Empath Survival Guide, Life Strategies for Sensitive People. And I've been listening to that again the last 2 nights. So
the Empath's Survival Guide.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think I might have to check that out because especially after this episode, when we run through all of these things, I'm like, man, if anyone has empathy or is an empath and they're having to feel the reverb of all of these huge things that are happening in the world right now, I mean, surely it's completely debilitating.
Oh, yeah. I honestly, every day being a struggle, I'm just impressed that I'm still doing it. Like, I don't want to have to endure this much, just like we talked about out, like, I don't need to be resilient. Like, I don't need to be tested with every single trauma, but we're here and it's still happening and it's now just compounding.
And you're still finding joy, like
Yeah.
coming and doing this podcast with me and us having laughs on the phone and painting our nails and doing cross stitch and finding moments of joy within all of this detriment, I think is such a big, important part to talk about. I was listening to Alan Watts this week. He had a talk on pain. And of course, we love Mr. Alan Watts. And he mentioned something that was really beautiful that kind of helped me really accept some of these bullet points. It's the concept of balance. How the world has to be at balance, this yin and this yang. If you have loads and loads of lettuce plants,
Okay.
well, the snails will come and eat the lettuce.
Yeah.
And if you're a farmer, I'm going to botch the shit out of this. Sorry, Mr. Watts. But if you're a farmer, you're like, screw these snails eating my lettuce. But snails are so cute. And you don't think of snails as like these predators, right?
Right. Ruiners.
Yeah, you don't think of them. Little snails, like a picture of a little snail in a shell, doesn't give you the same feeling as like a cockroach.
Yeah. It's
Right?
not like huge, disgusting threat in any way.
Yeah. But they will eat up and ruin your lettuce plants. Nature has designed the snails to eat the lettuce, or else the lettuce will overpopulate itself, overgrow, and begin to strangle itself. So
What? Lettuce does what?
it will grow so fast that it will begin to strangle itself and make it to where the lettuce plant can't grow anymore.
Like it's self-destructive in a way.
Yes. And naturally, the plant will stop itself from growing. So farmers take the initiative to separate the plants and make the plants far enough that they don't strangle each other, right? But
Yeah.
snails actually do that naturally.
Yeah.
That's what they're for.
Yeah.
But we as humans, we don't want no snails doing our job. We want to separate the plants and make them look organized and clean it up and make it nice. And we'll stop the strangulation from happening ourselves, Mr. Farmer. There's this natural balance to things, and that's the only thing that gets me through economic disaster, racial inequality, full-on pandemic mania, climate change. The world is going under. The world is turning upside down. It feels like all the snails are eating all of my lettuce plants and I can't handle it.
Yeah.
But something tells me actually nature is beautifully designed to equal itself out and balance itself out. So have some faith in your world and it will be okay. That's like the only thing that kind of gets me through it, you know?
Well, I don't know if I have any faith. We already talked about this. My faith in humanity was like long gone. But one of my favorite bedpost performers, Bedpost Confessions, who's actually like an award-winning national poet. Her name's Ebony Stewart. I've had a crush on her for like half a decade, and she knows this, so it's fine that I'm saying it out loud. But she made a video on Instagram in response to something that happened at one of her performances, and something she said to essentially all the white men was like, I don't believe in you, but I encourage you to be different, right? So I don't know if there's any balance or anything beautiful in like racial inequality, right? Like there's nothing that's like remotely good about that, you know, but I see what you're saying. And one of the quotes that helps me, like, especially since like the pandemic, like no joke, like as long as you've known me, you've known that I've had like debilitating OCD, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you could see it more outwardly when we first met, right? Like you could
Oh, yeah.
Like that. Yeah. But now it's more inward. A lot of it's more mental than, you know, something that you can see. But in all of that, like realistically, like I do kind of feel like in awe of myself when I think about the fact that the pandemic was literally like my nightmare, right? Like having continuation OCD, like that shit kept me indoors and like was debilitating before it was remotely, you know, a reality for us. And now that it is, it's like, all right, how am I, good job, Summer, pat on the back, round of applause. You're like doing it, you know? And the thing that helps me with stuff like that, when things feel so debilitating, it's this quote that everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end. Or it's not okay, it's not the end.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that.
That's my balance, right? Like, because we talked about it last time, like after like so much turmoil or trauma or heartbreak or whatever, it's like after you get your heart broken enough times, you're just like, yeah, I'll get through this too, you know? So,
Well,
and
that's the thing. It's
yeah,
about time.
yeah,
It's about how moments are in themselves such singular things. So it does feel, when it feels like the end of the world, it sure as fuck feels like the end of the world, because in this moment it is real. This single moment in time is a real moment. And it's hard for us to imagine the concept of this too shall pass, or that this is not the end of 16 moments that can all be acquired together to create one whole experience.
Yeah. Well, because it's so painful, right? That you can't see anything. It's like what you said. I used your example from one of our, I think it was our last episode, about the like, I'm trying to do a math problem after stubbing my toe. Like, if I'm in pain, like, how do you expect me to like focus on anything else, really?
Yeah.
You know, something a friend of mine said during the winter storm was like, we have a citywide blackout and like a statewide disaster, a racial injustice nationally in the middle of a global pandemic.
Yeah,
Upon,
the trauma
like,
is fractaled. It's a
yeah.
fractaled trauma, something within something else, within something else, within something else, and it's all actually the same. It's all shit.
The Russian doll of shit.
Yes,
Yeah.
true fractals. And it's funny because as you're talking about time, you know, going back to the snail and lettuce analogy, at the end of the day, we just want to pick the lettuce and have a great sandwich. But we have to go through all of this process in order to get to this end mark. And realistically, what is this end mark for us as humans? This end mark doesn't really exist. Having that sandwich is almost like every moment. So it's a really hard thing to do whenever you're like, shit, this too shall pass. I'm working towards blank. What is blank?
Yeah, what makes you get up every single day?
That's the key, I think. What is life? We've talked about this. Life is consistent change. Well, what is change? Change is a weird thing, but the one thing I do know, every single bit of change is a little tiny death. Every single time something changes, something else dies, even if it's the tiniest thing. So what we're doing as humans is we're going through death over and over and over and over again. Little death, little d, big D, whatever it is. And we need to learn how to grieve.
You know, I don't think I ever told you this, or maybe you don't remember, but the day that your mother passed, Erica's first her first child was born. Like within that same day or the next day. When my mentor passed, Dr. Shirley, my friend's firstborn was also born that exact same day. So that's happened to me twice now. And so I really happened to me, not my experience in any of these, but you know, just seeing that actually happen, like grieving something, you know, an incredibly tragic loss while, you know, watching new life like enter the world. It's overwhelming.
It's so overwhelming, but it gives me hope.
Yeah.
It calms me the fuck down. It's the literal light. I'm stubbed my toe. I'm in the pain. And there's this light that's like, you know the answer to the math problem.
Mine's the pain will pass.
Yeah, because it really is that. It's when we learn how to move through our grieving process in every bout of change, right? And we get used to it. It doesn't hurt less.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just thinking about, Summer sent me this damn list. I was like, let's talk about these things in the season finale. And it's so much. She was on the phone. She started saying them out loud to me, and I had a full-blown panic attack the minute she started talking, because she said, okay, well, first
and I was in a mood. I was like, my energy just like went from 100 to 0. And so I was like in a mood, and saying that with like a tone too, right? So like let's add to that panic attack by looking like I'm like mean mugging you at the same time.
You're in like your kitchen or something, and you just started spouting off kind of, you know, when people think out loud and words just kind of flow out of their mouth, you were just kind of thinking out loud, and you're like, okay, first we need to talk about economy, the security of job, and balance with, you know, resources and parenting, and then obviously Black Lives Matter, and the isms that are happening, and the divide that's happening, and the pandemic, and mental health, and expectations of money and family, and compounding trauma, and then climate change and existential. And I was like, I can't. I need you to stop right now. You have to stop.
Welcome to my brain. It's like that all the time.
I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. It was too much at once. All the snails were eating all the lettuce, and I just lost my fucking mind. And we got off the phone very quickly after that. And you texted me and you're like, hey, I hope you're feeling better. And I was fine.
Yeah.
And what I noticed is how you and I are so different in the sense that you're holding all of that for long periods of time. And you're able to handle it over like a long period of time, but it doesn't go away.
Oh, yeah, I know.
It's just always sitting there.
Yeah.
Whereas I handled it for like 3 minutes and it felt like my head, I wanted to punch a wall. I had explosive energy in me.
Yeah.
And I needed to immediately hang up the phone and I needed to stop it. I almost raised my voice at you and I just...
I saw you like almost get there and then like reel it in, like you're just like...
She reeled it in. But then I was actually just fine afterwards.
Yeah.
So there's no right or wrong. Every person is dealing with these bullet points of external dread so differently. And
so look at our yin and yang for sure. Yeah.
The yin and yang of pain.
It's not one that I'm proud of, but yes. No, I think that the seeing that difference though, like I think you've had more empathy for me this year than ever before. And I think it's because we can see this in each other. And I think like being able to look at a troll online that's like spouting conspiracy theories and be like, okay, well, what's going on for that person? Why aren't they seeing the truth? Why aren't they able to have a conversation? Why are they defensive? Like, like the excited to get up in the morning thing made me think about curiosity. I'm like, I'm at least curious for every morning. Like when I wake up, I'm like, what is my day going to look like? Which brings me back to your whole setting your intention, which I really liked. But if you don't feel confident, be curious. So yeah, but
I love that.
I like that in general, right? Like if you're grieving, like be curious for the next thing that's going to be good for you or exciting. Like I keep telling you, being poly and moving into a new relationship and being really excited, but at the same time grieving the last one even harder. It's a whole process. But the ball of grief, I don't know if you've heard this metaphor before, but it was I can't remember if it was like a TED talk or something that I saw. So like grief doesn't go away, right? Like no one who's experienced like a tragic loss or has had a, traumatic experience is like, yay, great, or I'm fine now. Like we talked about, like just getting through one hurricane doesn't mean now you're just like ready for all of them, or losing a parent or a sibling means that you're just like fine one day. It's the moving parts in all of that grief, right? So the grief ball metaphor was talking about how like if you have a room with 4 walls, right, and you've got a ball that touches literally every single wall because it's so big, your grief is so big, and there is a red button on one of the walls, right? And so when the ball's that big, it's touching that button all the time, like it's just laying into it. And as time passes, the ball gets smaller. So now instead of taking up the whole room and like that being all of your grief, it can bounce from one wall to the other. And it's like kind of like ping pong style, just going back and forth forever. And it doesn't always hit that red button, but
sometimes it does.
It sometimes does. That's why you'll have your like triggered moment or, your meltdown here or your big cry here. Like a friend of mine's brother died. Now it's been 11 years and it's not like she misses him any less, but it's just a matter of how debilitating is that grief for her because her ball's gone smaller over a decade.
Yeah.
So
and it's just as bright and it's just as bouncy and it's just as full of air, but it doesn't have to touch that button every single minute of every day. I love that analogy. And I love the concept that you said that, this grief isn't linear. It's overlapped in a sense how I'm just stuck on this damn snail and lettuce analogy.
I love it. I'd never heard anything like that before. So
Thank you, Alan. But it really is like we think the end goal is to like eat the sandwich, but while we're eating the sandwich, we could easily be watering another lettuce plant.
Yeah. Right? We share our sandwich as well.
Yeah. These moments bleed into one another.
Yeah.
It's not that black and white. The place where we actually meet in the middle is this muddled gray area that is very hard to define, is different shades for different people. But I do think that where the overlap happens is where we kind of find community, where we find acceptance, where we find true empathy.
I think it's the curiosity for me that keeps the empathy going. Like I definitely
100%. 100%. Hell yeah, fuck yeah, love that.
In the discussion of like, ableism, and for me it's being like, how much energy do I have for all these things? I have no tolerance. We've talked about this. I have no tolerance for certain things, right? Like, at this point, if someone wants to talk to me about Trump, for example, I'm not there for that conversation. I don't have space for it. I don't have tolerance for it. Like, I'm just not going to talk about something that's so, to me, that there's no argument behind, the things that 4 years brought us, right? It's not like racism just happened. It's not enough to be non-racist, right? Because there's everyone is, right? But the anti-racist is where the effort comes in. And what I'm noticing is like in that same farmer thing, right? Like my sandwich that I want to eat, my lettuce, it's like, is it possible that people aren't thinking about anybody but themselves? And so, to be anti-racist means that you're doing the work for like the greater good rather than just yourself and the immediate people that are affected. It's the same way the masks, like, it's appalling to me that we don't look at that as a public health issue and rather a freedom thing, because it's about the greater good. It's about the health of the community. It's about, not treating people like they're disposable. If we're really doing doing right, when it comes to privilege and race, is it reparations? It's work and people don't want to do it. And
totally. But then we have the argument of, if we make all of these quick changes, right? These fast changes, is that going to cause more harm than good in the long run, for the greater good, for the greater?
Well, look at climate change. If we stretch that solution out over time, we may be totally fucked. I mean, we've known for years that we needed to be doing better by, our planet, and we're not. And, and why aren't we, right? It's like too much money, too much work for the greater good, aka our future. But, are you the person who gets gas on the way home or says they're going to get it tomorrow morning? Because I'm 34. I've never gotten up early enough to get gas on my way out, But do I wait? Yes, until the fucking comes on. So it's just, I don't know. It's
so hard to say, like, what is so human of us, especially like getting sober and losing weight and, eating healthy, exercise, cleaning your house, all of these things that, like, as you become an adult, you're like, yes, this is what I should do. This will help me live a nice life. It helps me feel good. It helps me stay organized. It helps my mental, emotional, and physical wellness, right? We can't argue those things. But why is it so hard? I think that can almost parallel to all of these bigger changes that people don't make mentally or socially or with plastic or with eating meat or, all of these things. There are excuses, but we're not robots. We also can't be robotic in the sense of, our feelings and our humanity is kind of what gives us excuses sometimes.
I think it's funny you say robots, because I feel like this is the world we live in. We're made to be robots. We're made to have this 9 to 5, 5 days a week, 40 hours, if not more, without, taking the paid vacation that we're given.
Yeah. Drive through McDonald's, eat the thing, wash your car, go home,
watch TV. It's just it feels very like we could end up like the movie WALL-E turns out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where is the humanity? And I feel that way when I look at even school, right? Why the fuck are 7-year-olds going to school for 8 hours a day and then going home and doing 3 hours of homework? That kind of shit just blows my mind, because I'm like, what are they getting out of that? And what are they learning? And are they even retaining any?
You know what I heard? I heard that recess was something that schools mandated, not for children, but for teachers to take breaks. Isn't that crazy to think about? And a lot of it is, we live in a different time than our grandparents' grandparents. We talked about this last episode with all the, generational trauma. What they had to instill in society to help society now hurts us. And what we can instill today may hurt our future, and we can't even see it. So it's so hard to justify stopping these so-called robotic actions to create almost new robotic actions. So I think that's where the empathy comes
combating everything else. When you went over your list and you said lose weight, there was a part of me that was like, no, like going to like fat phobia. So it's just like,
Well, there you go. There's a good balance right there. The
yeah.
acceptance of people who have curves and don't want to lose them versus the acceptance of people that have curves and do want to lose them.
Well, even just looking at the norm, right? Like what did models look like 100 years ago? What was considered beautiful then? Which is why this whole robotic or fitting me into a box or the societal norms of cis het, monogamous, like all of this is like, where is the manual to life that we were given, being told that this is the way we need to do it? Anytime I feel like there's an expectation upon me or someone else feels like there's something that's expected of them, I'm like, says who? Like,
Yeah.
why is it that you have to dress that way? And if you have a problem with putting a mask on, then why do I have to wear a t-shirt everywhere? Like, why can't I just walk around with my chest exposed or no pants? My tits aren't going to kill someone, right? So
Yeah.
it's like my elbows don't offend someone, but like my ass does. Like, it's wild. And so to me, it's like, yeah, but you know what? Once upon a time, ankles were slutty. So it's just, to me, it's like, okay, in this point in time, why am I following a rule book by a book that I did not check out of the library? Who's the fucking author? Why do I have this? Like, conforming to something. This is our norm.
Totally. I think the little punk rock anarchist in me from high school is like, fuck yeah, Summer. Fuck the man. Fuck the rules. Live your own life. Choose your own path. But then there's this really weird thing that is humans need some kind of structure in order for them to feel secure, safe, and continue to grow. So we have to battle these two things that really are the opposite of each other. One is kind of anarchy that says like there are no rules. And then one is like, what is the structure and what are the rules? And
I want to know why. And so in this like, world of gray that you mentioned, like, I'm like, why is it gray? Why can't it be rainbow?
it's rainbow, baby. It's rainbow. You're right.
Well, thanks. It kind of reminds me of this quote: psychedelics are not illegal because a loving government is concerned that you may jump out of a third-story window. Psychedelics are illegal because they dissolve opinion, structures, and culturally laid down models of behavior, information processing. They open up the possibility that everything you know is wrong. It's like, I think about the structures that we have, the rules of society. Like, it's not like I'm going and saying like, no cops, no firefighters, no government. It's literally like, but why do we have certain things? Like, why do we have the mask mandate? Because it saves lives. Why do we have seatbelts? Because it saves lives. Like, there's certain, like, I just want to know why. I don't want to just say.
Yes. And now we're getting back to full circle, which is whenever we're not confident, be curious.
Yes.
And if you want to make change, ask the questions why. And it's not in judgment. It's not already saying, well, I think this is wrong, so why? But instead saying, I don't understand this perspective. Maybe that's on me. Why?
Yeah. Can you take the time to tell me? Do you have the energy to tell me?
Yeah.
Like, respecting everyone in that space. If someone doesn't have the energy, maybe a person of color shouldn't tell the white person why they have privilege, still doing the work to fucking Google something or ask somebody else.
Yeah.
That curiosity keeps you going, not just stopping and throwing your hands up because it's too hard or too much work or it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I love all of that. Accept the snails, my friends. Your lettuce patch will thrive. And when you can't be confident, be curious. Yo, I'm going to miss season 1. This has been great. Season 2 is going to be full of intense topics, just like season 1, but I think we're going to try and get some new perspectives in, and specify a few things, get some boots on the floor experiences involved. And we gonna miss you guys. We gonna miss you guys. It won't be too long.
Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for being here, Fiona, with me always for the rest of your life. You're stuck.
Your one and only, baby. All right, listeners, we'll be chatting with you very soon. Please make sure to check us out on Instagram, review us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Let us know if there are any particular topics you want us to bring up in season 2. And again, shoot us a DM on Instagram and send us some love. We love to repost the things that you have to say.
Thank you so much for your time and energy and listening to the space that you and I have created.
Yay! Thank you for your spoons. Until next time, you guys, you've been listening to Your Radical Being. My name is Fiona Rene.
And Samar Poorlakani.
And we are signing off. Talk to you soon.
Bye. Bye.